Hello, welcome to the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the wonderful city of St. Paul Park.
TrueLens Podcast.
Well, thanks for tuning in today. Today I have a special co-host, and that is the City Administrator for the City of St. Paul Park, Hugo McPhee.
Hi, Ann. Everybody out there in podcast land, nice to be here. Talk about the city.
Yeah, thanks so much for stopping by. I love St. Paul Park. I love the river views. You know, it's this nice, quaint kind of town with a beautiful business area downtown. Tell people who may not know, where is St. Paul Park?
So St. Paul Park is a town of about 5,600 people, located just down the road from Newport, in between Newport and Cottage Grove. So Highway 61, southbound 70th Street exit is your only chance to come into the city unless you want to backtrack around. So we have one exit and one or two stoplights. So we're pretty small.
Which is what people love about St. Paul Park.
Yeah,
You know.
it is cool. It is. I sometimes tease that we're a bit of an anachronism, kind of a throwback in time. We could be, a small town in northern Minnesota.
Oh, absolutely.
Literally eight minutes from downtown St. Paul, and you're just right there next to everything. Very very small town feel. Yeah, it's nice. It's quaint. It's a good adjective for it.
I always think one of my all-time favorite parks in the area is Lions Levee.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
It's just gorgeous, and I don't think a lot of people know it's there.
No, it is cool because you get the Mississippi goes right past, and people boat there all the time, and it gets to be pretty hopping in the summertime. It is very pretty. We have a little bridge that gets you to the island when it's not flood stage, and you can go there and you picnic and whatnot. It's really cool. It's not very well known, but a cool asset for the community.
Yeah, look it up if you haven't been there yet. What's your background, Hugo? Because you came to the city, last year?
Correct. Yep. Last summer. So I have had a very circuitous route coming to St. Paul Park. So I retired from law enforcement after 33 years, someplace in there. I was chief of police at a place called Three Rivers Park District, largely a conservation.
Oh, I love that.
Oh,
They have amazing parks.
Yeah, nationally renowned, top 5 park systems in the country.
Absolutely.
True story.
Playgrounds are incredible.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible.
Yeah, if you want to see $1 million playground, they got them.
They got them. Absolutely.
A pretty cool place to work. But largely a conservation hybrid between that and like a sheriff's office kind of thing. So I did my last 15, 16 years there as chief. Prior to that, did crime scene reconstructions, the usual cool, what most people think is cool. I think is cool stuff. But then I went to work for the state after retiring from law enforcement, worked for John Harrington when he was Commissioner of Public Safety, did that for a year and a half or so, and then went to the city of Burnsville as their deputy city manager, and was there for about 3 years, and then thought I was done. Thought I would.
Wait, this is what you did in retirement?
Yeah, I failed. I
don't know if you got the memo on what retirement was, but
fishing, hunting, did some of that, but ultimately thought I was done after Burnsville, and then I saw in the paper some transition going on at a little town called St. Paul Park. Well, so then I did some exploring and saw that it was kind of a cute town and whatnot. And coincidentally, they were advertising for a new city administrator. Some staff was turning over. Some people were retiring. Some people found other jobs, etc. And I thought it was a cool place where you could really make a difference. And it had kind of a vibe that was small town, local charm. Not like high stress necessarily. I mean, there are things that'll get you going, but by and large, it's just providing services and, really having an impact on people, and was small enough that you could readily do that. So I thought that was cool. That's what initially brought me in.
A good fit for you.
Yeah. Yep. And then one thing led to another, went through the process, and Bob's your uncle, here I am.
and that's where it all started.
Yeah. So, but very cool.
Well, we're happy to have you in town. I think that's great. You also have a lot of other new faces at City Hall.
Yeah.
And recently we did a video kind of highlighting those faces. And I thought, well, what a perfect place to then show little clips of that during the TrueLens podcast here and talk about some of those new faces.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, let's do it.
So let's start with our first one, which is a new police chief, Scott Whiteford. Is that how you say his name?
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So let's take a look at his clip, and then we'll chat about it.
Okay.
Okay.
What interested me about becoming the police chief of St. Paul Park, first of all, is I fell in love with the community during my tour here. Small town feel, very supportive, and that attracted me to want to be part of this St. Paul Park family. This was also a department where we had newer officers that have only been here for a couple of years. We have veteran officers that have up to 14 years of experience. We've got newer officers that have only had maybe a year of experience. But it's a small department that's rebuilding. And with my background, I really enjoy to build people, build a team, and that was just very attractive to come here.
So Chief Whiteford, how has he been as a good fit for St. Paul Park?
Well, Scott is awesome. So we were in my opinion, very lucky to find Scott, and that Scott, as you saw in the clip, very much resonates with the type of city we are and growing. He is one of those individuals who wants to make their mark and improve things, very, very similar to me in a lot of respects. But what Scott also brings to the table is he is a nationally recognized professional regarding hostage negotiations. He started the Crisis Negotiators Association here in Minnesota.
Oh,
He's
wow.
got a national footprint, has presented at various conferences and whatnot, and is very much into that emergency crisis response. He's a certified emergency manager. He has gone to some senior command schools, FBI caliber, long-term programs. So he brings a wealth of experience, comes from a larger city, comes to us from Plymouth, and was looking to have a chance to make a difference and an impact and improve our community, our police department, and the profession. One thing that I think really resonates with Scott is if you're lucky enough to be one of 370 chiefs or so in the state, that's about all there are, you have an absolute responsibility for improving your community, your department, and the profession, and he exudes that. That's what he's all about. And like I say, I think we're very lucky to have him, and he's hit the ground running. We're doing ordinance updates, following up on not just nuisance type complaints, but there's some moderate stuff that happens from time to time. We are in a very urban area, not far from St. Paul, not far from other larger communities, and people sometimes find their way into St. Paul Park, and not the best of intentions, and so
right.
we're there.
Which is why we have police departments.
Exactly.
Yep.
And is really, really setting the bar. And one thing people may not know about our police department, everybody but like one or two officers, and we have 9 total, have less than 2 years experience. So a very young department. And so he teaches at one of the local community colleges and just brings that mentoring, teaching mindset. He's an awesome fit. I can't say enough about him. He's really been a good fit and has the right collaborative mindset to work with communities in general, small communities in particular.
Well, and you being a former police chief, you probably had an inside look at who you wanted in that position.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised. We had quite a pool of people who applied to come in to be chief.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it actually was hard to narrow it down to the top 5 or so, and then we interviewed the top 3. And all were very capable, senior commanders at different departments, and it was a very pleasant surprise because I didn't know what our selection process would look like, and it worked out very, very well.
That's excellent. Let's go on to our next newer face at City Hall. It is Administrative Assistant Monica Sanders.
In my regular job, I've never dealt with the public so much, and I actually enjoy dealing with the public, especially since I've been at the American Legion for about 30 years, so I know a lot of the community. So it's fun for them to come in and see me here. They're like, I didn't know you worked here. There's a really good team here, and they're really here to take care of the community.
So residents will see Monica right at the front desk, correct?
Correct. She as you come in for anything you need at City Hall, she's the public interface. She's the person that you would most likely run into.
And what does an administrative assistant do?
Little known fact, they handle all permitting some of it gets routed through to the company that we have do our inspections, but the initial permitting process starts with Monica. Bill payment, dog licensing, project management. So she's one of the big things she's working on is the community market. Shameless plug, first Tuesday of the month, June through October, at City Hall. It should be very, very cool. But she'll help with projects like that. She helped with our phone switch over. She's helping with the new app that we have to make sure people have the communication, so not relying on Facebook. So she's kind of a jack of all trades, so to speak. And one of the biggest attributes I think she brings to the table is she's very disarming, super friendly, but disarming. People come in and they don't understand a bill and they get
That's important. Sometimes people are a little upset.
Oh, for sure.
Until they get the answers.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And if she doesn't know the answer, she finds somebody who can answer. And it's like right now, and she stops what she's doing. And so when that person comes to the window, they're the most important contact that she has, and she gives them. I've seen it. I mean, and that's why she rose to the top in the process. Very customer focused, very service minded, and that's what we need. I mean, not everybody comes to City Hall in a positive mindset. Sometimes they're upset, sometimes they're looking for the police, etc. And she's just a great source to have there, and really does a myriad of duties for the city, and I think she's awesome too.
Great. Well, you haven't said anything bad about anybody yet.
No, I've hired these people.
Well, let's go to another person that you helped hire is the new finance director, Dawn Monahan.
As a finance director, you are responsible for the budget as a whole, and you have to be able to push back on unrealistic demands or requests, and you have to think of the city as a whole in terms of the budget, not just individual department requests. And sometimes that can require negotiating with different departments, finding cohesiveness with competing priorities. Another big thing is problem solving and brainstorming. There's always something unexpected that pops up that requires your attention, and sometimes think outside the box. There is a great team behind the scenes and out in the field that really value and care about the community that they're serving on a day-to-day basis.
So Hugo, what do you think about Finance Director Monahan?
Well, I know this is going to come as a shock to everybody, but especially those in the office, I do not have, contrary to my looks, a strong background in finance. And that's where Dawn comes in. Dawn came to us from Vermont, the city of Barrie, Vermont, and she was the finance director and assistant city manager there. And so she comes to us with a wealth of experience, and I rely on her to help us with what we're starting as a capital improvement plan, which we didn't really have. We had money set aside for future uses, not necessarily for what those specific uses were, so we weren't arguably necessarily as strategic as we should be. So she helped me kind of craft that. I mean, I knew we needed that, but I didn't know exactly how that looks, and she's got the financial.
So that would be like, fixing a building, like City Hall or a water tower, things like that?
All of that. Large expenses that typically you would budget for over the course of several years. Fire trucks, dump trucks, street improvements.
Fire trucks are very expensive.
Oh my gosh, $1 million just to get in the door.
Yeah.
So she brings a great skill set to help navigate some of those things. And she's so friendly. She's so down to earth. The theme is, as you watch these clips, people are so resilient, customer driven. They're all talking about, none of this was scripted. They're all talking about
right. You were going to say this.
Right.
Yeah.
Customer service, customer focus, helping others. It's just such a nice small town feel that we're here to help people. And sometimes it's not. Maybe we have to enforce an ordinance or some zoning requirement or whatever. But that's for the good of the city. We try not to be onerous with it or anything like that. And no, she fits in. She fits in great. And two of the existing staff, the longer term staff, Missy and Amy. Missy is our accounting tech, and Amy is our city clerk. Everybody, it's just a really good team. They chip in when somebody's gone at the front desk. They all take turns. I took a turn at the front desk. Thankfully, it was very light activity. Again, you don't want
somebody comes in, you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, can you come back in an
Where's
hour?
Monica?
Yeah, no kidding. But no, it's fun, and I think the big thing is resiliency and a team. I think people really,
especially when you're small.
Right.
That's
right.
super important. We're small as well, so it's very important to be able to chip in and help
for
each
sure.
other.
For sure. We people don't realize this. We have 23 staff in the city, 24 staff. That's the police, that's public works, that's admin, that's not counting the fire folks. We have about 20 paid on call firefighters, but yeah, we're very small, so you have to be able to put on different hats and do different roles and functions, and that also I think is cool about why people are drawn here to work for the city anyway.
I want to see you out filling potholes. Do you ever like?
So I have not here, but I have. One thing that I really like to do is I'm a very visual person, kind of an experiential learner. So when we have projects, 3rd Street detour, Geneva Meadows, the Tamarack subdivision coming online, we think. I like to go out there and observe it. Or when people complain trucks aren't on the following the truck route, I'll drive out there and see and observe it and whatnot. And then we work in tandem with police and public works. But it's nice to get out in the community, and then you run into people. I usually wear something that identifies myself as, a
Right,
city
you're
employee.
wearing it right now.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So they don't think, well, who's this guy coming up to me?
Right.
Or actually a really cool place, unabashed plug for a downtown cafe that has great patty melts and pancakes. Everybody comes there. So if you wanted to get the pulse of the city, get there by 7. Don't stay till noon, but I mean, it's a different. It's
you can if you keep ordering. Yeah, they don't care.
There you go. But everybody comes through there at some point in time, or the Legion is another place. I mean, you have like the usual places where the folks go. For a while there, we had coffee with the city administrator. We called it coffee with Hugo, HUGO, but we put a spin on it. Helping understand governmental operations.
Oh,
I have a future in marketing. When
you
this
became
is done,
an acronym.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
That was very interesting, and we got to meet. We had some in the daytime, some in the late afternoon, and so just so people could see like what makes the city hall work. Show them the council chambers and kind of a tour of this, that, and the other. So you wouldn't really have a chance to do that at a larger place,
right?
But,
people that you'll actually probably run in to at the gas station,
right?
Because
Yep.
it is a small town.
Yep,
and that's what's great.
Keep it fun, keep it low key, and we're just all trying to get through the day, doing taking care of family and each other, whatever, right?
That's the big thing. Now we touched on Public Works a little. Let's go to the last person in our New Faces video, which is the new Public Works Supervisor, Tony Brinkman.
There's 7 of us, 2 administrative positions, and then 5 maintenance workers that keep everything going within the city. The majority of the current staff now has been here 10 plus years, so they're very well versed and very reliable in that aspect.
So Public Works, how essential is that department?
Public Works is probably easily the most overlooked department in any city, because as long as the water is flowing in and out of the house and the streets are smooth, people don't give them a second look, and the roads are plowed, that kind of thing. People oftentimes take them for granted, but as you saw in the clip, we're very light staffed in the Public Works function. And the cool thing with Tony is he's been here for 20 plus years, or approaching 20 years. And been there, done that. He knows so much about the city, so much about the community, knows where the infrastructure issues lie.
He probably knows, like, that's that one pipe. And he'll have, like, a name for it that we don't know what it is. And he'll be like, oh, that one pipe is messing up again.
Right.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, his assistant or his deputy supervisor is a fellow Brian Rumpke, who's been there 30 plus years. We just recognized Brian here not too long ago. So we really have a seasoned group of folks in the Public Works. Been there, done that.
And they really care.
They do.
They really, they treat the city like their own home.
Yep. If you look at the parks in town, manicured grass, things are very well kept in very, very good condition, and always willing to help. Always, and they do it all. They do things from painting at City Hall, laying carpet, fixing things, hanging TVs.
They've done that too. Yep. Yeah.
In addition to the usual outside stuff, and just a really truly skilled group of folks there, and Tony leads them. So,
well, let's kind of go into, you and your team have made some goals for the year.
Oh, sure.
And you wanted to chat about some of those goals. The first goal that you made was improve livability.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Staff felt it was very important as we came up with our goals for budget going into the new year, et cetera, that we should have some driving motivational factors of what we're trying to accomplish instead of just asking for money to do this, that, and the other thing. And so we collectively came up with the idea that whatever we do should have an impact on the quality of life for the residents. And if it doesn't, then we shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing something else. And that could be something as simple as street improvement or training people up to be emergency medical technicians, which we have a plan in place. And recently we just, like literally 2-3 days ago, got an award from Marathon Refinery for $52,800 to put towards training, because we're going to train all of our police and firefighters to be EMTs, which is a step below paramedic, but it's a very high level of medical response. So our typical response to calls is 3 to 5 minutes in town. So if you had a serious medical issue, you would have somebody there who's trained to help.
Police or fire are going to get there the fastest.
Yep. And then the ambulance isn't far behind, but with the medications and whatnot.
And that's true in most cities.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So that was the main goal. It's like whatever we do should improve people's life experience, quality of life. Some of that is grant writing through. We were just designated a partner in energy with Excel. So some of that is conservation best practices. Some of that is potential grant funding or reimbursement, depends upon the project and the program. But a larger partnership, not only should that save tax dollars for how we manage our fleet and our energy use within the city, but there's also components for rental units, places of worship, small businesses, manufacturing firms. There's different chapters, if you will, for helping to manage your energy expenses. So that's all part and parcel with that. And a second goal was, mitigating people's impact of property taxes, mitigating that through the use of grant writing and et cetera. And some of that I touched on. But I mean, it goes a long way. And whatever we can do to be true fiscal champions of people's tax dollars, try not to waste things, et cetera, and be responsive and listen to the community. A good example of the council listening to the community and staff bringing this forward is when we were doing the 3rd Street detour. Everybody knows that the road was narrowed slightly, and there's study after study that shows a more narrow, slightly narrow road does slow people down compared to if you had a broad, lane and a half.
Right. On people racing past your house.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And some people had concern with that. And so what we did in phase 2 of the 3rd Street detour is we came up with ideas. Well, okay, can we widen the road somewhat, or is that a benefit to do so? And what we did, staff came up with this idea, the sidewalk in that area, because it's downtown, industrial area, had to be 10 feet wide. But as we moved further into the residential area, we reduced that to 8 feet, saved 2 feet of labor and concrete for that, and applied that towards the widening of the road, 2 feet. And we actually, it was essentially a push. It was like a couple $1,000s difference. So the concerns that people raised, the road wasn't wide enough, we were able to widen it slightly, parking lane, et cetera. And so we kind of accommodated some joint concerns. That's a good example of
win-win.
Of us implementing some of these goals. And then the last goal is just enhancing our communication with the community. And historically, that's been a bit through Facebook. But the challenge with Facebook is, unless people are clicking on your things all the time, and we don't post stuff daily, it's as needed, and items of interest, you don't fall high enough into the algorithm. So by the time you post something out, it's not,
people might not see it.
Exactly, and it's not particularly timely. So we're implementing a different app, a communications app called Regroup, which is where we'll be going live with that probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're just ironing out some bugs. So people can sign up for that, or use your QR code to scan it, and you'll get instant time, a direct message, whether it's a text or phone call or whatever your preference of communication.
Oh,
so
great.
rather than scrolling through all the Facebook.
So if there's a water main break,
exactly,
the city's going to text you and tell you there's a water main break.
Correct.
Or hey, there's an event going on.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we can dial it in so it's within a 2-block radius, or it could be the entire city, or it could be whatever. Part of that comes with direct connection with weather alerts and whatnot through NOAA. So there are a lot of cool things. That's an example, among others, of how we're trying to over communicate and you reach out to a community member.
That's great. I mean, they always say you can't communicate with everybody in one way.
Oh,
Everybody takes it different ways.
Right.
So whether it's a newsletter or a text app or Facebook or whatever you're doing, as you start to expand that, then people start to catch it in all different ways. And they go, oh yeah, now I know.
Yep.
There's always going to be that one person that says, no one told me.
Well, there's going to be, half the city who's listening to podcasts because that's the new way to
podcast, another way to communicate, right?
No, I agree. I agree. And actually, that's also the thinking behind the introduction of staff, new staff, and people might be wondering, who are these people? Where do they come from? What's their background? So that was part of the concerted effort to, really show who we are and we're here to help and all of these things. So,
well, we're glad that, TrueLens was able to help you as well and get that kind of information out. There's one more video I want to watch, and it's a little clip of an interview that you did recently with Mayor Franke. And it kind of touches on that whole thing about get involved and let us know what you're thinking.
Oh, sure.
So let's take a look at this clip and then we'll chat about it.
We just had a situation with the small development we having coming into town, and with the ability that I was able to work with staff and the developer and others to kind of change some things. And it was all based upon the fact that people were voicing their concerns. It was weird because when the citizens came, they thought like maybe myself or the council were going to be adverse to hearing their voice. And afterwards, I thanked them. I said, thank you for coming forward because I'm saying the same things, but I'm only one person technically. I might be the mayor, but you're allowing me to show whatever situation, whether it's a developer, a business, or whatever, that I'm not the only one. This isn't a personal thing or it's not a city thing. There is no agenda. This is what's happening to our community. So if we hear from you, we can sometimes utilize that voice to make change. And that's the big thing. Help us make that change. Get involved and get to know your neighbor, get to know your community. Take the time, reach out, stop by, whether it's just getting to know the person down the street or head to Heritage Days or some other community festival and introduce yourself.
So Mayor Franke says, voice your opinion. How important is it for residents to come out and let the council and the city know what they're thinking?
Oh, absolutely. There's no more direct way to have impact than to let your voice be heard. Join a commission, contact staff at City Hall, or if you call City Hall and you have a question specific to Public Works, for example, they can route you directly to the person who best can answer that. I tell you, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and this what I've embraced. It's kind of who I am anyway, but that's what made this such a good fit because the mayor is all about helping community, helping have a better experience, and just providing service and care for the community. I'm not sure if this has officially hit the news yet, but through the mayor's behind-the-scenes work with the Highway 61 70th Street interchange, he was working closely with some of his contacts when he was a state representative. And we actually got $400,000 for pre-design and planning to redo that intersection because of that interchange is so busy with the growing size that St. Paul Park is, and then the refinery traffic. There's going to have to be a better workaround and solution because traffic does get backed up quite a bit. Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really great to hear. 400 million?
Right. No, 400,000.
Okay.
And it's probably
even 400,000.
Oh, sure.
That's great.
Sure. It's for planning and pre-design, and that might be enough for that. Hard to say. The actual project itself will likely be tens of millions of dollars that MnDOT will take care of. But this is the first step in that. And we didn't get much voice in the initial committees that were heard, but he was very resilient and kept at it. And literally over the weekend, we maintained our position and were awarded, or it has to be signed by the governor, but in all likelihood, it's going to be $400,000 for a very, very important project.
That's great, because I know you've been talking about it for a while at the city of St. Paul Park. That interchange. And the city, I mean, the tax burden for that would be, just for the study would be significant, So, that goes towards your leverage grants to offset property tax on residents. It's not a grant, but it acts like one.
Let's call it alternate funding. But,
alternate funding, I like that. Yes, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool things. I'm not just being a cheerleader or anything like that. There truly are things that are going on in the city. There's things we need to improve upon as well. We have a couple of cool things to that end. We have a mattress recycling effort coming up in July, which we'll advertise and help people get rid of, because it's very expensive to get rid of mattresses.
It is very expensive.
How are you going to get that taken care of? We're planning the first citywide cleanup in some time on a yet to be determined Saturday in September. Not sure about the logistics of that. Probably will need to bring your stuff to the Public Works building or some such, but we'll have staff on hand to help sift through what you're bringing in. But that's very important. We're updating the ordinance as far as junked vehicles, junk period, white goods, tires, stuff that people aren't, in some cases, taking the greatest care of to dispose of, which is, kind of defraying from the quality experience of nice neighborhoods and what have you. So there's those things going on. We talked about some of the other, like the community market, et cetera. There's the car show, which isn't necessarily city function, but that is a cool
It's
thing.
well known.
Well, yeah,
it's well known.
And a lot of people come to it.
Yeah.
Heritage Day. So we're really trying to embrace and kind of weave into the fabric, of the different things that you can do in town and build community and all of that sort of thing. So it's really, really cool that we've got the team to do that. And now is the time to implement these things, because we have the energy to do it. So
Well, it sounds like a lot of great things happening in St. Paul Park.
yeah, there really are. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to give you final word, Hugo McPhee, City Administrator of St. Paul Park. What's the last and final thing you want to say on this podcast?
If you have any concerns with how the city is operating, don't hesitate to reach out. You can call me directly. I still answer the phone. I don't have a secretary. I mean, you can call and or pop in, and like it's not, you'll be able to get me out of my office. And I want to hear what's going good, what's not going good, and the mayor's the same way. And I just want people to know that we're there, we care, and we're approachable. Maybe we print T-shirts. We're there and we care.
We're
I don't
there.
know. Maybe that goes. So I don't know.
You are marketing, aren't you?
So much for my marketing prowess. But no. Well, thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for coming.
Oh yeah, it's great to talk about the cool things that we have going on, and if people have ideas on things we could do more, hey, let us know, and we'll put it into the gonculator. That is the decision-making process, and see where we go.
I want to see the gonculator.
Yeah, I think that's a Hogan's Heroes flashback. So
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate everything that you've been able to tell. You gave us a lot of information in this podcast.
Yeah. Well, thanks. And there's a lot of really good work being done. Staff are awesome. I can't say enough about not just the staff leadership, but the line folks from the firefighters to the police officers to the public works people. We can't forget about them, and our office support folks. We really are a good, solid team trying to do the right thing, and we care about the community. So
The perfect way to end.
yeah.
All right.
All right,
Well,
thanks.
thank you for watching and subscribing. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. TrueLens Podcast. Subscribe now. Brought to you by TrueLens Community Media. Watch, listen.